Good morning, Pioneers. Welcome back to The Grit. I'm Zach Howard, and on this week's episode, we'll be interviewing the state title-winning head coach of our Pioneer football program, Coach Schroeder. Thanks for taking the time to come on the show, Coach.
Yeah, thanks for having me up here.
All right. The first question we have here is, what got you into coaching high school football initially?
I always I like working with young people. I like teaching, and I've always kind of been that way. And I love sports, so I felt that was a good way to mesh it. Football is always something I had a passion about. It's fun, the camaraderie, the competitiveness, the atmosphere on Friday nights. There's a lot to like about it. So, and just make an impact on young people, it was just the right fit for me.
What goes into putting a high school football staff together?
There's a lot that goes into that because you don't want to make a wrong decision. Because when you have a staff that's not connected and not in it for the right reasons, it gets tough. So the first thing we look for is good people. We want people who are just going to be good with kids, good around us, and then from there, that's first and foremost. Then we look for people who understand the game. If you can understand the game and you can add value, and the knowledge of what we do, and then a good teacher. We need somebody that can teach kids and understand the knowledge, but pass that along to the kids as well. So, yeah, we look at that really. Those three things.
All right. Kind of back to your past jobs. You've coached a lot. You've coached schools from that were in the Ohio Division I all the way here at Orange to Division I to Division VII.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. So what are the differences between? Obviously the schools are different sizes,
Yeah.
but what's the difference between Granville and here?
There's a pros and cons to both places. I think at the big school, it's almost more like college because you have well over 100 kids in your program, and you're making tough decisions a lot because there's a lot of really good players who might not get to play as much as they would like. If they were at one of those smaller schools, they may get to play. And the smaller school, it's a smaller roster. You're kind of almost closer with the kids because you have more one-on-one conversations. You're coaching the freshmen for 4 years. Here we only get the freshmen for 3 most of the time. And but football's football at the end of the day. So I love both. I love small school football. I love the atmosphere that comes with it. But I also love the competitive and coaching at the highest level. So there's a lot to like about both.
How has high school football changed over the years, both in how it is run and how it is managed? You played football in high school as well, right? Correct.
Yeah. So back when I played football, over 20 years ago, practices were different. I mean, we don't condition a lot. I think there's just a lot of study and science that shows you can do that outside of there in the way you practice, and then. I think just the physicality of practice. We don't tackle to the ground very much anymore. When we were young, when I was growing up, and we were in high school, freshmen got beat up sometimes at practice during that, and they kind of got rid of that, which is a good thing. Kids are safer. Just the evolution of that, just the physicality and the player safety, which is a good thing. And the game still has kept its excitement. It's still a physical game at the end of the day, but we're as a whole, you're just much smarter about it now than you were 20 years ago when you were just running people into each other.
All right. How do you handle players that are dealing with I guess the recruiting process, or how does that intervene at all?
Yeah, I mean that's an important part. That's part of my job. I spend a lot of time talking with colleges, and college was in this morning. They're in here a lot. I send emails out, texts, and the hardest part about that is being fully honest and transparent about where kids see themselves. A lot of kids think they're Division I, and they might not be, because there's a lot that goes into being a Division I athlete, your measurables and all that stuff. And I think it's hard sometimes to explain to kids hey, you're a really good football player at a really good school, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go play at Ohio State. It's hard to temper those expectations because they, the colleges are recruiting the kids and making them feel wanted, but at the end of the day, they're going to do what's best for them, and they're going to find the kid that fits their needs the most. And they only take so many, so it's really hard to get those scholarships. But we push for our kids, and we're doing everything we can to find them the right fit, both academically and athletically.
All right. What is something that you say that you like picked up from each of your coaching jobs?
Head coaching or assistant coaching or
Any.
you learn something every week. I learn something every year. So, when I went to Allen East, which was a Division VI school, my first head coaching job, you thought you had, you think you have all the answers, and you don't. I'll never forget that my first loss there, my second game, and I didn't think I was very good. I was like, I made a mistake. I was in the Olentangy schools and left to become a head coach, and but then I realized that things are never as bad as you think. They're never as good as you think. So once you watch, you can't really tell until you go and watch the film. So that first year at Allen East, it was just, it takes time to develop a culture and a program, and we did that. And then at Granville, just going through some tough times early on through COVID and all that stuff. It was just staying resilient and going through hard things. There's normally positive at the end if you can find a way to persevere through times when they're tough. And they were tough early at Granville. I felt like I wasn't wanted there as much, and then we had success. Then I was wanted, and then it became fun and enjoyable, and I could be myself. And then here it's just the delegation of finding the right coaches and the right players and giving them the tools necessary to be successful and do their jobs and putting them in the best positions to play, as fast and as physical as they can.
Why do you have a preference for, this is more of a silly question,
Yeah.
why do you have a preference for names that begin with A?
My kids?
Yes.
Well, it's a good question. My wife pretty much decides the names for the most part, but I always tell her I have veto power where I can tell her, no, we're not having that name, because when you have kids, you're going to find out that if you're a teacher, you associate a lot of names with students that you've had. So some kids you might not want to associate with your own kids, or vice versa, or so she comes up with those names, and our first one was Aisley, and her name is the combination of me and my wife's name. Her name's Tracy, it's spelled Traci, so the A and the I, and my name's Wesley, so we took the A and the I and the Sley to get Aisley, and then from there we're just like, well, why don't we make them all A's, and then we kind of just did all A's from there.
All right. How do you manage being a father alongside, a coach and a teacher?
That's the hardest part. I fortunately have a good support system. It starts with my wife, who's phenomenal. She's she loves being a coach's wife. She's a hard worker. We have 6 kids, and she works from home, but she does have a full-time job, and she's a great role model for my young 5 daughters and my son. So she likes it. If she would tell me we weren't doing it anymore, I probably wouldn't do it anymore, but she enjoys it. She knows there's time away, and she knows the expectations and the challenges that come with being a coach. And then, I have my mom who lives close by, and my wife's parents live close by, her sister lives close by, and their family, my brother and his family live close by. So with as many kids as we have, it's just like anything, you need a lot of help, and we fortunately have a lot of people helping us with our kids, and but we spend a lot of time. We don't do much. Our fun is hanging out with our 6 kids. So, and then coaching football. Yeah, having kids and coaching football, that's what I do.
What brought you to Orange specifically? Because when I was at least looking at like the football record, you were having a lot of success at Glenville. So what brought you here to Orange?
When I was at Granville, it was I grew to love the place. I got really close with people out there, and good relationship with players and parents and staff and administration, and it was not an easy place to leave. But the whole time I was at Granville, I was living here in Olentangy District, and I used to teach in the Olentangy District, and I knew it was a special place. I knew this was a place you could win state championships, and we obviously proved that here in year 2. And it also helped that 2 of my nephews were coming up, going to be on the team. I knew this place could be a sleeping giant where you could win at a high level, and I knew it was high academics. We're good in most sports here, so it's a fun place to be a teacher and a coach, and I'm grateful. I was hired, and I took the chance to come here.
Both at kind of speaking of that, both at Allen East and at Orange, both had like a lot of success, like almost immediately after you arrived. Mm-hmm. Like both programs weren't like at that level. Orange was 4-8, I believe. Allen East was
Yeah, they had some success, they had playoff success, yeah. But
yeah, so like what goes into like why were these rebuilds so successful, and how did you manage to pull them off so quickly?
I think I learned Allen East was probably the biggest rebuild. When we took the Allen East job in 2018, they won 3 games or less, like 9 of the previous 11 years, and the kids didn't believe they could win. I think we just instilled some toughness and belief and confidence, and we just expected to win. We didn't care who we were playing, when we were playing. And once we went 9-1 that second year, I had that instilled confidence in myself, and I just expected. I thought we were going to win everywhere we were. I was like, we're not going to lose, and it's just, I think it's a mindset. It's the expectation of doing things the right way, being physical, being tough, persevering through hard times, and at the end of the day, is we're just being consistent with our standards, making kids show up, and then holding them to, doing things the way that they need to be done, and then caring for one another. Because once our kids start playing for each other, I think if you watched our team, you would see how connected this team was. But that team was connected, but the teams I've had in the past were really connected too, because I think we put a high emphasis on playing for your brother, because you can only get so high by yourself. You can only get so far. But once you start playing for something bigger than yourself, which is your friends and your community, I go back to our St. Ed's game, and that was like the epitome of who we are. It was just such a emotional. We just weren't going to be denied. We played so hard. We played so much harder, so much faster, so much tougher, and we beat Eds like they haven't been beat in a long time. Because of that, I think we do a good job putting them in positions, but I think that was the driving force.
How did you keep the players? Like obviously at Orange, I don't think we have ever we obviously never had a season quite like this. Yeah. So how did you keep players, I guess, on track, like both with like an undefeated season and to win a state championship?
Yeah, it was always a 1-0 mindset. We were just trying to win every game, but more important than that was just win every day. And we just wanted to have the best practice we could have. And we'd start that out and say, hey, we have to have the best practice today. This has to be our best day. And we have to compete with one another, and we have to punch each other in the face a little bit and not fight. And we did. We started out practice with some tough practice, some one-on-ones on one end and group run on the other end, and it was just ultra competitive every day. And it was really important. I think that was, you do that every day, and it's just the games were just a byproduct of what we did. We talk about person, process, product, and the person's what we care about the most. So we were just coaching the person. We wanted that person to be the best version of themselves. And the process was the way we practiced and how we treated each other, and the product was what it was. I don't care. I said, I don't care. Let's just play as hard as we can, as fast as we can, and let the results be what they are. And we like the results 15 straight weeks. So they just did the job, and it worked out.
All right, so kind of speaking back to that St. Ed's game, for most of the season, the media and even some of the other teams did not believe this Orange team was that legitimate. What did you, I guess, see in this team that no one else did? We're strong everywhere. We didn't have, like, you look at the Eds and the Cincinnati schools like the Elders and the St. X and Moeller. They have guys going everywhere. But I feel like what we had was a connected group way more than what they had. And I felt like we were better at more positions as a whole. They had some top end guys. They had guys going to Michigan, Notre Dame, and all these places, and we had some high end players too. But we didn't care. Like we just said we're going to be us, and we're going to play as hard as we can, and we believed. And it was never a doubt. I felt like going in, we kind of called our shot in the off season as coaches. We're like we're going to be playing for 15 weeks, 16 weeks, and we were telling people that we knew we felt confident. We didn't know it was going to happen because you have to get some breaks, you have to stay healthy, but we knew there was a strong possibility that we could take on anybody that was thrown at us. Gave you also gave defense a pretty cool name, the No Name Defense.
So yeah, that was something. Yeah, the kids talked about that, and I think again when you play with that emotion and the passion, and we thrived in an underdog role. We won a playoff game last year. They won one playoff game in 19 and one playoff game in 11. So there's only been 3 playoff wins ever previous to this year. And we played the underdog role a lot. Nobody believes in Orange. Nobody thinks we can do this. Nobody, I think, and then they're doubting you, they're doubting him, they're doubting me. And We just want to prove us right. We don't want to prove everybody wrong. We want to prove us right for believing in each other. And then the guys really bought into the no-name defense and gave up 7 points in the last 3 games. Really, we gave up the 1 pick six, which wasn't on our defense, and then X scored late, but shut out Eds and shut out Pick Central, and the 1 touchdown, which we probably could have stopped that one early in the game, and they hit that sweep outside, and we sent our middle linebacker. If we probably don't send it, we probably get a stop on that drive too. But yeah, they played pretty good, and they played really fast. Our team speed caused some problems.
What do you want players to take away from their time with this program and into their adult life?
Yeah, that's like the most important thing, right? I think football, more than any other sport, teaches you way more than football. This is I'm not comparing other sports. I just know what our sport does, and I played other sports, and the toughness that you have to be a football player, to get hit really hard and probably get your feelings hurt or get embarrassed a little bit and get up and go the next play. It's going to happen. You're going to apply for jobs. You're not going to get them. You're going to get rejected in a lot of areas, and you got to find a way to keep pushing through. Outside of that, you got to show up consistently. We make kids show up, and we don't take just any excuse. It's got to be a legitimate excuse now. It's not like I got a stomach ache, I can't be there on Tuesday. No, you still come here and we need you to work. And obviously, if it's severe, and we can gauge that. But that's what life's going to be. You can't just show up to work when you want. You got to show up all the time. Your family's going to need you to show up, and this team embodied that really well. And I think it's really important that our best players and our biggest contributors were that way. They never missed a day in the 2 years I was here. They worked really hard. They got embarrassed and continued to fight, and now we need that to carry over because we do replace a lot next year. And it's going to be tough next year, but it's going to be fun at the same time because, again, we get a chance we're the 15-0 state champs, and we get to prove people wrong again. So,
all right. Thanks for coming in, Coach. That's all for today, Pioneers. Be sure to check out The Grit this Friday, hosted by Alex Ramp and Justice Colvin. Be sure to support your Pioneer athletes, and as always, roll Nears.